everyone. I'm Ivo from Ambire, and today I'm going to talk to you about a new emerging technology in the field of non-custodial wallets called smart wallets. In order to understand what smart wallets are, we need to start with explaining what are the fundamental issues of current wallet technology, and namely the so-called externally owned accounts, or more commonly known as like normal wallets. For example, MetaMask and like let's say Trust Wallet, etc., etc. So the fundamental issues of Web3 UX, and when I say Web3 UX, I mean in non-custodial wallets, but some of those also apply to exchanges, are first of all that it's very complicated to create a wallet, and we've all been there. Earlier, my colleague Vanina covered this in her business track talk, but overall, what I mean is that it's for a new user in Web3, it's really complicated to, first of all, install an extension, second of all, write down a seed phrase, third, learn how to guard that seed phrase, and it's a completely insane UX because imagine that you're, let's say, building a game. That's a very good example that I've recently discussed, and you want to add, like, let's say, an NFT, like the person who's playing the game should receive an NFT, and you're making this gamer create a wallet, and then they discover that they have to install an extension. It's just insane in a world where we're all used to like signing up on TikTok for 30 seconds, right? If you remember how easy TikTok was initially, it didn't even require signups. So while Web 2 is moving in the next UX level, Web 3 is actually so far behind. It's ridiculous, really. Then the second thing is it's completely impossible to recover your wallet. If you lose your seed phrase, if you mistype it, not exactly if you mistype it, but if you, let's say, exchange the place of two words, or you can also get hacked, like someone could take a picture of your seed phrase if you're not careful, and it might sound ridiculous to people who are experienced, but this is something that actually happens. This is something that people who are new to Web3 do all the time. They give out their seed phrases all the time. They just don't understand that this piece of paper with 24 words is holding their entire life savings. And it's just not a foolproof system, not something that we should have in 2022. And then finally, we have the third problem, which is, let's say you're trying to swap, for example, wrapped Bitcoin to Ether, and you go on Uniswap, and you need to do an approval first. And it's really tough to explain why you have to do this approval. Like, it's a complete nonsense step. It doesn't make sense for the user. It isn't something that adds user value. It's just a technical detail that should be hidden away and should be abstracted away, but it's there. And as a result of having to do multiple transactions in order to do DeFi actions, even like as a result of that, you can have stuck transactions because transactions on Ethereum are sequential, which means that in order to get a transaction mined, the previous one needs to be mined as well. So let's say that you're trying to get a loan from Aave, and you're doing a few things: approving the token that's your collateral, then depositing it into Aave, and then you're getting the loan. So with those three transactions, there is a very high chance that you might broadcast two at a time, and the first one would have too low of a fee, and you wouldn't know that. And then you have your entire account be locked. You can't even send funds to someone because your account is like hanged on this one transaction. Why does this problem exist? This problem is really fundamental, and it comes from the technological underpinnings of how Web3 works. Accounts or wallets are based on public-private key cryptography, also called asymmetric cryptography, which is, in very simple terms, you have your private key, which is a very large, impossible to guess number. This number is so huge that you can be guessing for the entire lifetime of the universe, or thousands or millions of lifetimes of the universe, and you wouldn't get it right. It's just a really huge number. And then this number is actually represented as the 24 words. So this is why you have those 24 words, because they represent this really huge, impossible to guess number. And wallets work by keeping this huge number in secure storage. and encrypt it with some passphrase. That's the case with MetaMask. So of course, if you forget the passphrase, there is no recovery other than the words. So if you weren't careful with the words, you would lose your wallet. But the point here is that this number is the only thing guarding your assets, and it's not actually guarding your assets, but it is your assets. So this number is all of your money, and it's not something that we as humans are used to as a concept. We are used to having, to being able to recover our accounts. We are used to having a shoulder to cry on, in a way, like going to the bank and saying, okay, I lost my credentials for the online banking, can you please help me? And in this case, you just are guarding this huge number, which if you even lose a part of it, you're gone, like all of your savings are gone. And then you have your public key from which the address is derived. A lot of people think that the public key is the address, but the address is actually a hash of the public key. This public key is tied to this particular number. And why is this important? This is important because this means a coupling of the authentication. So you cannot change how this account works. If this account is based on these 24 seed words, you cannot change the seed words. You cannot change the way, you cannot change this very large number in a way that you will keep your address. If you want to rotate keys, which is something really recommended in the security world, if you want to change your keys from time to time, you have to also change your address. And this is bad because we want to have like permanent addresses in order to have our friends send us money, in order to be able to even log in with our wallets. And of course, it makes sense. Like you don't change your username every time you change your password, right? You can imagine a case where someone, like you have two corporations working with each other, and one of them sends funds to the other one, sends a really huge sum to an old address, which was compromised and was hacked, and it gets drained immediately. So we have all of these issues. So another issue with regular wallets that are based on this private public key cryptography is that they're really low level in terms of, like, for example, on Ethereum, you have to pay the fees in the native currency. On Ethereum, that's Ether, and you have this chicken and egg issue where someone creates a wallet and they need Ether to do anything, but they don't have Ether. So then they have to ask their friends to send them Ether, or if they don't have any friends who are in crypto, they have to sign up on an exchange, and this defeats the whole purpose of having a wallet, right? If you're keeping your funds on an exchange, or even if you have an exchange account, you lose on this amazing world of decentralized non-custodial wallets where usually you can do everything, including exchanging currencies. Finally, the final thing that I didn't say is that with those normal wallets, you can do only one operation at a time, and we're going to cover why. So I already covered most of these issues, the issue of having to create the account, the issue of ERC20 approvals, which are just something that needs to happen on a low level, but we have to explain it to the users. When you have no Ether for gas when you create your wallet, of course, losing your seed phrase, and again, this private key, which is, again, this number, can really easily be stolen by malware. So if your computer is compromised and if you're using a software wallet, then all the malware needs to do is to find where the key is stored and get this key, and that's it, and the wallet can be drained immediately. In order to solve all these issues, we are introducing smart wallets. Actually, we're one of the first companies to introduce a smart wallet back when we were working on AdEx, but we're not exactly the first. Perhaps the first smart wallet would be the Parity multisig. Of course, that didn't end well, but that was because of like malpractices within the Parity team. But the unique thing about smart wallets is that they can be powered by multiple private keys. So you don't need to trust everything in one big number. You can trust it in multiple big numbers, which are stored on different devices. And the benefits of this are immediate. Like if you have your phone as a secondary factor, even if your computer is compromised by malware, even if one of the keys is stolen, the wallet cannot be drained immediately. But at the same time, using a combination of time locks and multi-signature wallets, you can use this scheme of 2 private keys, one on your computer and one on your phone, in order to be able to recover your account. So even if you lose your phone, or even if you lose the key on your PC or laptop, you can still recover the wallet with a time lock. But at the same time, if one of the keys is compromised, you won't have your wallet drained immediately. So as I said, the benefits of having multiple keys are immediate, and this is not simply a multi-sig wallet. This can be combined with time locks and with other recovery mechanisms in order to make a wallet that, in terms of UX, resembles Web 2 and has all of the goodies of Web 2, like recovering your wallet, resetting your password, being able to have 2-factor authentication with your phone, and being more resistant to hacks. Another cool thing about smart wallets is that you can pay fees in stable coins, or you can even pay fees in any ERC token you have. So imagine you create your wallet and someone sends you like 1,000 Shiba Inu coins. You can still pay the gas fees only with the Shiba Inu coins you have. You don't need to beg your friends for Ether or create an account or Binance, especially because you don't have any Ether on your wallet. So it saves a huge amount of time, and it makes basically, it brings the Web 2 UX to Web 3. And all of this while still remaining non-custodial. Like, you don't need to compromise the non-custodial nature of wallets, which is not something I can say about solutions about old generation solutions, which still worked with normal private keys, but on the cloud. With those solutions, of course, you have the private key on the cloud, so you still have the same vulnerability of the key getting stolen. You just put it in someone else's hands. Like, for example, you put it on Amazon, or you put it on Microsoft Azure, and you still have the issue of the private key being compromised. But with smart wallets, simply because of the fact that you can have multiple keys and you can have time locks and you can have rules that govern the account, all of those things are solved. Another thing is that you can do multiple things in one transaction, and this is important to hide away ERC20 approvals. So with a smart wallet, ideally, if the DApp is integrated, you would go on Uniswap and you wouldn't have to do the additional approval step. The approval step would be built into the trade transaction or the swap transaction, and there wouldn't be an additional step needed. And of course, you can do, for example, my example that I gave with Aave of putting collateral and then getting the loan. You don't have to click like 10 times to do it. You can do it in a few clicks. So again, very similar to like Revolut, Robinhood, and all of those dApps from the Web 2, not dApps, apps from the Web 2 world that we know and love. The benefits of smart wallets summarized are, first of all, you can sign up without a seed phrase. You don't need to write down any words. You can sign up the way you know, again, from Web 2, with an email and a password. Vanina mentioned earlier in her talk that many people think that email and password is an insecure way to do Web 3 wallets, but that's not actually true. It's only true for the old generation wallets, which were based on one private key. So if you have that one private key, and if you abstract away this one private key with email and password, you always have some underlying issue, like the key can be stolen or deleted from your browser storage, or you can easily have the dApp compromised with external JavaScript and the key to be stolen again. But when you have the smart wallet with, let's say, a secondary key, which is based on a server-side HSM or hardware secure module, then you don't have this issue. And it's even more secure than the setup that most people have. I might go as far as to say that it's more secure than hardware wallets for people who don't know what they're doing. So of course, if you know what you're doing, a hardware wallet would be more secure for you. But if you don't know what you're doing, then an email and password-based authentication with a secondary factor, so with, let's say, Google Authenticator as a 2-factor authentication, is way more secure than the hardware wallet, because the hardware wallet still leaves a lot of room for user error. And of course, another great thing about smart wallets is that you can change the way authentication works over time without having to move funds or without having to change your address. This is important because, as I mentioned earlier, people might already know your address. You might even have a username, .eth name for that address, but some apps may be caching the address. And also you might have staking positions. So you don't, some staking positions can't be moved. If you decide to change your keys, you cannot just move your staking positions where you've locked like this token for 5 years. So with smart wallets, you can change the way it's authenticated without changing your address and without moving funds. So let's say that one day you get accustomed to seed phrases, you get accustomed to hardware wallets, and you buy a Trezor or a Ledger. You can upgrade, or not exactly upgrade, but modify your account in order to not be using email and password anymore, but be using a hardware wallet. And this is, of course, without changing the address, without moving funds, literally a five-minute operation. And of course, you can have, as I mentioned, two-factor authentication, but you can also have something you might have heard of, which is social recovery. That's something that Argent, another smart wallet, pioneered in the past. And it means to give like 5 keys to your friends, ideally friends who don't know each other. So you have to have a big social circle to have 5 friends who none of them know each other. Because like if they decide to work together, they can steal your funds. But let's say that you do have those 5 friends and you give them keys and then they can help you recover the account if you lose something. I'm personally, and we as a company, we're not fans of the social recovery method. We think that account recovery, which is more similar to the Web 2 traditional way of email-based account recovery, is way better. But you can still do social recovery with Ambire and actually with any smart wallet with a bit of work. So yeah, it's a possibility if you prefer not to have the email-based recovery, but to have social recovery. And of course, all of this while not compromising the non-custodial nature of the wallet. Because again, we're talking about non-custodial wallets. We believe that there is a big future in custodial wallets as well. But ultimately, we're cyberpunks and we believe that non-custodial wallets are the best. That they save you a lot of hassle. They allow you to keep your privacy and they allow you to keep your like independence. And of course, that's a trait unique to crypto. And maybe unique to gold as well, but generally unique to crypto, the ability to be your own bank. So further advantages of smart wallets are that you can have one-click DeFi interactions. So instead of, I guess some of you have been DeFi degens in the past and have staked tokens or farmed tokens, and you know how complicated it is to jump through like 5 different dApps and like stake on Aave, then get the A token from Aave, then do an LP token on Uniswap, and then stake this token on some farm. You know how complicated this is? With smart wallets, you can do all of those operations in one transaction. So that's something that InstaDApp in the past pioneered. InstaDApp is also a type of smart wallet, but any smart wallet can do it. I mentioned already that you don't need to do an approval. And because you don't need to do an approval, you don't need to do a hack. And the hack is that most dApps keep infinite approvals. So when you do an approval once for a token, it approves this contract to use this token forever for infinite amount. And when I say infinite, I don't mean something that can be reduced. I mean literally infinite. And this is dangerous from a security perspective because if that contract is upgradable, they can upgrade it one day and use it to steal your funds. So using a regular wallet that requires this hack, and of course this hack is done for UX purposes so that you don't need to do the approval every time. And if you use a normal wallet which needs this hack, then you might get compromised in the future without even knowing it, without even using your PC, without even, like your hardware wallet could be locked in a bank, in a safe, in a vault in Switzerland or whatever, and you can still get hacked. Simply because one day, like 2 years earlier, you gave an approval to some random dApp. And this dApp was upgradable. So it's really scary to think of it that way, but it's true. Your account can be compromised even without interactions. And smart wallets solve that to a big extent because with smart wallets you don't need to work stuff around in order to improve UX. You can actually do the approval for the exact amount within the transaction, and approving exact amounts means that it would get automatically revoked after the transaction, so you won't leave this huge security vulnerability. Another advantage is that you have automatic gas fee management. This means that stuck transactions are much less likely. So when I broadcast a transaction and I say I'm willing to pay up to $15 for it, let's say, and the system would know and it would broadcast it with an actual gas fee, which is as small as possible, but within this $15 limitation, but still large enough for it to get mined immediately, or whatever your speed is, like whatever speed you want. It would adapt the gas fees over time, even if something changes on chain, and it would inform you. So that's a big advantage of smart wallets. And you can pay transaction fees in any token, as I said, in stable coins, even in random shitcoins or whatever. And finally, we have automations. You can do stuff in smart contracts which are just not possible. Of course, many things are not possible in normal wallets, but this is even more mind-blowing. You can automate transactions. So you can say when Ether hits like, let's say $1,000, buy 10 Ether. And you can set this rule in your wallet, and the wallet would automatically execute this transaction when the time comes. A technical reason why this isn't possible with normal wallets is that transactions, as I said, are sequential. So if you sign this transaction and then broadcast another transaction, then this one that you already signed is invalidated immediately. Not true for smart wallets. And you can set all sorts of rules like that, and the transaction will get executed even if you're on an island somewhere and your wallet is not anywhere near you. So yeah, automations are another advantage. Some examples of smart wallets. I guess most of you have heard about Ambire by that time. It's suitable for power users and beginners. We found that there is an intersection of users between, there is a weird intersection of users that not everyone who is a power user actually knows what they're doing. Like many people are complete degens and they do their experience with all sorts of dApps and they do crypto stuff every day, but they still don't know how the Ethereum blockchain works under the hood. And unfortunately, with current wallets, you do need to know how the chain works in order to operate it. And Vanina mentioned that sometimes you need to read hex and you just need to read a bunch of letters and numbers, and unfortunately that's true. Like in MetaMask, in some cases, if you are signing a bunch of code, and if you don't know what this code means, you might be signing away your money and not even know it. We saw so many exploits. For example, like Bored Apes is a different example because they were scammed out of their seed phrase. But we saw many examples of people like signing up to like these free NFT mints or free airdrops, and they're actually not doing that, but they're actually signing away like control of their Bored Apes or whatever. And what I'm saying is that it turned out that power users and beginners are kind of the same group, because even if you're super degen and super experienced, you still need a helping hand, and you still need good UX. There is no such thing in the current world where you can assume, yeah, that person knows what they're doing, I'm going to give them bad UX. Even people who know what they're doing, and even the professionals need better tools. No one wants to have their life made more difficult. Everyone wants their life to be easy, even if you know what you're doing. So our philosophy there is to cater to power users, but have great UX at the same time. Then you have Argent, which is probably the most OG smart wallet because they're promoting this concept since the longest. I remember they launched in Prague in 2018 at DEF CON, and they're a great team. But they're mobile focused, and the reality is that a lot of us still want to use our laptops to manage money, especially if it's a large sum, and many people are just not comfortable with using mobile phones for that, even though of course you have Revolut and you have Robinhood. In crypto it seems to be a little bit different, and that's why we're cross-platform. We have a web version, we are going to be launching a mobile app, and we're also going to be launching an extension. And then the third smart wallet that I wanted to mention is the Gnosis Safe, and it's the smart wallet that has the biggest total value locked at the moment. It has billions of dollars on it, and that's because people use it to store Ether. Unfortunately, people don't use it with dApps a lot, and that's something that we're discovering, because we're discovering that many dApps do not support smart wallets, and Gnosis Safe users did not discover this for some reason, and that reason is that Gnosis Safe is primarily used just to like park some money and never utilize it. So this brings me to my next slide, which is adoption challenges. The biggest one is the signature support. So even though smart wallets work with any dApp, seamlessly without any intervention from the dApp developer, there is one exception to that. And this exception is signed messages. And signed messages usually work with the public-private key cryptography, which of course is still used in smart wallets, but you can have multiple private keys. So how do you solve this? Some wallets, which are not smart wallets, MPC wallets, multi-party computation wallets, they solve it by having multiple private keys sign the same message through a special cryptographic algorithm. But we solve it through having the contract of the account, verify all of the separate underlying signatures, and say whether that's a valid signature. And that's something that requires intervention from dApp developers. They have to implement a standard which is special for smart wallet signatures. And unfortunately, very few dApps implement it today. And as I said, unfortunately, it turns out no one uses Gnosis Safe daily, and no one uses it to interact with dApps. So these issues are kind of buried now, and people don't know about them. So the other thing is, of course, developer education. Many devs don't even know that contracts can be wallets. And people think like, is it a contract, then it must be a dApp. Is it not a contract, then it must be a wallet. And that's completely untrue. Wallets can be contracts as well. And the other thing is bot protection. Some NFT collections intentionally block contracts because they think that contracts are bots. And that's not the case. Contracts could be actual users as well. And the final thing that is already solved is the gas overhead. Smart wallets no longer have a significant gas overhead because of proxies and counterfactual deployments. I'm not going to go into that, but another benefit of counterfactual deployments is that you can have the same address on all of the supported chains of a smart wallet with counterfactual deployments. You don't have to have separate addresses. So I'm going to go really quickly through the deep dive because we don't have that much time. But you might have heard Vitalik shilling account abstraction. So account abstractions or account abstraction is just a nicer way to say that they're trying to make smart wallets native to the Ethereum chain. It's just a bunch of things that make smart wallets more like a first-class citizen and not like something added on. So yeah, account abstraction, you could think of it as the same thing as smart wallets. And another deep dive that you might be interested in to scan the QR code to find the Twitter thread is how smart wallets compare to multi-party computation wallets, which Coinbase recently launched MPC wallet. So I've done a deep dive on Twitter about why smart wallets are better than multi-party computation wallets, which seem like half-assed solution, honestly. So did everyone scan the QR code? I mean everyone interested. All right, I'm going to just leave it there, and you guys can think of any questions you have. Yeah, we have a bunch. So just before I cover the question,
Thank you.
I already said that Ambire is a wallet that combines power, security, and ease of use, but it's also fully open source and non-custodial and audited. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is exactly around that. How do you guarantee that you don't use the private keys of your customers to take their money?
Yeah, we don't guarantee that, but it's enforced by the contract on chain. So even if we are malicious with our key, we cannot do anything unless we go through the time lock. So even if like we go rogue and we go malicious, we cannot steal the funds of the users, and this is enforced on chain.
And how long is this time block?
The user can modify it, but I think at the moment it's 72 hours.
And you get notification over email?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah? Yeah. Well, it depends on what you mean. Like, if you mean only for the recovery, then obviously you need to pay something for the recovery. That's logical. But then if you mean for every normal transaction and having the overhead of a contract for a normal transaction, the overhead is actually really tiny. it can get down, especially with the gas tank feature, which allows prepayment for gas fees. It can go down to 2,000 gas per transaction, and the default overhead of the default added gas on Ethereum is 21,000. So it's tiny, but then it's negated by the fact that you can do transaction batching. So like in Uniswap, if you do the approval separately, there is a 21,000 overhead for that, and we save this 21,000 in order to add this 2K. But again, it's a specific case because you need to be, all the stars need to be aligned, like you need to be using the gas tank, but the overhead generally is negligible in the right circumstances. Actually, the setup is really cheap as well. The setup is only like 30,000 gas on the first transaction. You don't need to do a separate transaction for setup. Just you're gonna have this 30, 40,000 added to your first transaction. So yeah, there is some overhead on setup, but it's really almost invisible and not that large. Yeah, I think we had one question there and one question there. Yep. In that order.
I have a question regarding the security with email and password registration. Can you elaborate a bit on the security measures that you implemented? And more specifically, is there a way, for example, to correlate addresses with emails?
To what addresses with emails?
Correlate emails with wallet addresses.
Oh, no. So the relation between email and address is only kept on our backend. In terms of security, it works by using a multisig where one of the keys is stored on a hardware secure module on the backend, and the other is stored in the browser encrypted with the passphrase. None of those individually are great. But when you're using a multisig on top, which is a 2 out of 2 and requires both of them to be active at the same time, then it becomes way better. So, for example, if our backend gets compromised and the HSM gets compromised, you cannot move funds. You need to wait for the time lock, and the user would receive a notification. If the browser gets hacked, it's the same. You really need, like, if you want to hack someone, you need to hack both our backend and the user's browser in order to compromise their key. Yeah? Oh yeah, if our backend is compromised, then yes, you can find the email addresses of the people, but we could think about how to improve that. Yeah, I think we had one more question there.
Yes, to extend on the first question, so you are saying that the time lock is 72 hours and the user is going to receive an email notification, but actually you are sending the email notification. So, if you disable the email notifications.
Yeah, that's a good point, but keep in mind that anyone could be running the watcher, and a big part of Ambire is open source, so you can really do a lot of those things. Can I run my own
watcher for my wallet?
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't even need to use our software. You can actually set up, like if you're when you're more technical, you can actually set up something based on the graph or any other service which delivers notifications related to your address. I think you can even set it up with Etherscan, because in order to be able to interact with the wallet, you need to call the wallet as a contract. So Etherscan lists all those transactions, so you can just set up a notification on Etherscan and you can see any interaction relating to your wallet.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we have to move on to the next presentation.
All right.